What's up? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you? How about you?
I'm good. It's really nice to meet you. Where are you today?
Right now I'm in sunny Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
My
Is
my
is
home.
that is that where home is?
Yeah. I've been living here for 6 years, but originally from Sydney, Australia.
Okay. So where do you consider home to be?
I think home is just where I am at that time. No, but LA is my home now. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. LA is my home now.
I one time in an interview said that home is wherever my mother is, and I still get like extra credit points for that. Like it's still something that she like references to her friends. Um, well, cool. It's really nice to meet you. I wanna start off by saying that for those listening, I'm gonna give a little bit of backstory to how we met. And before we get there, I'm gonna say that um, the What is Vital project, which is a project that was many years in the making for me, but really came out of the pandemic because I saw a ton of these sort of like GoFundMe things popping up during the pandemic and artists being like, I need money in order to do the different projects that I'm working on. But for me, I was like, I feel like there's maybe a way where we could create some sort of nonprofit foundation, some sort of fund that with those funds, it's all money that people can give to this charity. It's a tax deduction, and that money can be given straight to artists in order to make what is vital to them. So I set out to work with my friend from college who has a background in arts administration and my brother who works in finance to be like, how can we create this fund and how can we find artists that are making really awesome stuff? And besides the word artist, people get confused that that means it's just one medium. It's like I think of lots of people as artists and what they create. So it was basically, how can we find artists, how can we support them in what they're doing, not tell them what to do, and then how can we basically distribute these funds to people in order to help them pursue whatever it is that they're trying to create in their life. And then that is when we met and we aligned with your project, the Creative Futures Collective. So, can you tell me and the audience basically where that project comes from and how it sort of has been woven into your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna do like the high level version for you. But Creative Futures Collective was started officially in 2019, and basically like super high level, what we are is we're an ecosystem, an opportunity ecosystem for talent that has traditionally been overlooked, ignored, or forgotten. Um, and our mission, which is what we started with, which is essentially to empower that next generation of creative industry leaders, but from disenfranchised or system impacted communities. So that could be anyone that's maybe formerly incarcerated, someone that's experienced housing insecurity, people from low income communities, people with disabilities, people from the LGBTQ, essentially people that just haven't had access to opportunities or support specifically within the creative industry. So that's, like you said, when you say artist, it means a lot of things. So creative industries for us, it's music, it's film, it's art, it's media, it's fashion, food, sports, etc. So we started that in 2019, and basically the way it was a complete accident. Like this was never an idea that we had. I moved to the US in 2016 to LA. I was running a startup at the time called Locals, and what we were kind of doing was kind of just like cool team building experiences for companies like Uber and Salesforce, WeWork, PayPal, etc. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example of how Creative Future was born. But like we worked with Uber here in Southern California, and we would take their executive team, surf them with a pro server for the day. And that's something that we would do. We would do these quarterly kind of things. However, when I moved to LA, I got introduced to a bunch of nonprofits here. And two in particular that we started to work with. One was called Safe Place for Youth, which was like an organization that provides support to homeless youth. A lot of them kind of aged out of the foster care system. And the other one
Yeah.
was called A New Way of Life, which is a re-entry program for formerly incarcerated women. So when a company would pay us to kind of put this experience together, we would then reach out to those nonprofits and say, hey, have you got any your youth or your women that would want to come down and be part of this experience? And like, absolutely. And they'd send people down. the company's employees and the people from the nonprofits would kind of do this incredible experience together. Everyone would have a great time. And that's kind of like the business that I moved out here to do. The reason why Creative Futures was born out of that was, having a long, hard look at what we were doing. It was like, well, really, what's the tangible outcome here? Like, you're giving these people this great experience, but then they wake up the next day and they still don't have permanent housing or have a job. So what we started doing was saying, how can we create like employment opportunities for people through these experiences? So basically, we kind of flipped it on its head, and instead of just inviting people down to do the experiences, we would pay them to come and work on the experiences so they could network with these professionals from these companies and stuff like that. And basically, that kind of just evolved into we had two businesses. We had one business which was kind of creating these employment opportunities, and one business which was doing the experiences for the companies. And in 2019, we just said, you know what, the experience thing is fine, but it's not really changing anything. Like, do the Uber staff need to go surf with the Pro Surfer? No. But do the people from a New Way of Life or Safe Place, do they need to find secure housing or permanent jobs? Yes. So we kind of just went all in on Creative Futures and started the organization completely self-funded, and yeah, that's how it came about.
So when we met, basically what we're partnering in right now is for Nashville, for the Soho House in Nashville. You have mentees that are basically connected with professionals in the community in Nashville, and they are each given a Soho House membership as a part of your program. So then we are combining with you, and we're able to give some funds to each of the people that are a part of your collective for Nashville. That's where we're starting. And each of them, in all of the fields that they're a part of, they have a little bit of money to put towards whatever project they're working on. They have the Soho House membership. And I think for me, I always am trying to see like it's more than just, being an artist. And again, I use that word broadly because I think of not just people who make art, but like there are days where it feels like you want to give up because there's no sort of like feels like community effort or community groundswell in order to like get your projects off the ground. So what I love about this is that it's a partnership between us, between Soho House, between all of these mentees, and I'm excited to see truly like how both we evolve, but also the best part for me is to get to watch how each person takes the funds and then basically puts it towards whatever they are creating in their life. Because that's the story that I'm most interested in. Like, I'm most interested in watching people's lives unfold through what is vital to them. Yeah. Anyways, I want to thank you for sharing. I'm so excited about this. My last question to you, and you can take it wherever you want to go, but in all of my years of touring and of making music and everything, I'm always asking myself, and it changes, what is vital to me? And so I'm going to ask you right now, August 5th, 2022, what is vital to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've never really thought about it, to be honest. But I think, I'm 38 years old now. I started my first company when I was 16. And I kind of think that Creative Futures Collective is like my swan song. It's like everything that I've kind of done in my life is come to this point. And like I said, Creative Futures Collective was never an idea. I think it's a bunch of experiences, a lot of them personal experiences to me. And I think I've found the place where I'm going to kind of spend the rest of my life. So to give some context about what all that means, so it doesn't sound so wishy-washy. So like I mentioned before, like I'm from Australia. My dad's an Indonesian immigrant. He didn't go past 8th grade in school. So he came to Australia when he was 19. Uneducated, he was quite limited in his employment opportunities. So he was a cleaner his whole life, never earned over like 30 grand a year. My mum, white Australian woman, very well educated, but her passion is on Indigenous rights. She was actually arrested for protesting Indigenous rights at the 1988 Commonwealth Games when I was 4 years old. Cool. So there's not much money in Indigenous rights either in Australia or any country, to be honest. But so yeah, we didn't grow up with much. No one in my family is entrepreneurial. But when I was 16 years old, I ended up starting a record label, like a punk rock label. So I grew up skateboarding and listening to punk rock. And when I was 16, a buddy of mine and myself, we started this label. We had $500 each. He worked at McDonald's, so he pulled that money in. I didn't have any money, but my mum had put away, since I was a kid, like just, a couple of dollars a week saving up. And I got to this $500 pool. When I was 16, I was able to go to the bank account and take that out without her knowledge. So we did that. We pulled the $1,000 together and we were able to print 500 CDs, which a punk rock compilation called Cave of the Year. So I did that when I was 16 years old. When I was 24 years old, about 8 years later, we ended up selling that label to EMI.
Wow.
And yeah, and there was no outside capital. There was no family connections. I knew nothing about the music industry. I didn't really know what a record label was when we started it, but I just kind of figured it out. And one thing that I didn't do was I didn't go to university or college. And the reason being is when I started a label in high school, I got so obsessed with label, like it was the best thing ever, even though I made no money for 5 years. I got so interested in that, I lost interest in school. So when I was doing my final exams in year 12, I didn't get the best grades. So I didn't get the grades to go to university and do communications, which is what I thought I needed to do to learn how to run a record label. Instead, I was just kind of like, shit, I'm just going to run the record label. And that's how I learned how to run a record label. So, as we were growing and kind of the label was getting more successful, we had a couple of really, really big artists. We would get people that were like other executives in the music industry that will kind of send their kids to us to do like internships or work experience. And that was how kind of people got in the door, or people coming to us, oh, I just finished this university degree. I used to go and speak at like music colleges and music classes to the students. And the first thing I would say to them when I got there is like, you're wasting your time being in this room. Like, don't pay $10,000. You don't need to. Like, go and manage a band, go put shows on. Like, you figure it out. Music industry is like, you can do anything. The barrier to entry is quite low. So the reason why I say that is when we were starting Creative Futures, my network was predominantly in the music industry, and reached out to a friend of mine that worked at one of the major record companies. And I said, look, I've got a couple of people, and this is people from Safe Place for Youth, former foster youth, that were looking to get into the industry, like on the business side. And basically said, like, how do we get spots in the internship program? How does that work? And my friend connected me with the person that ran the internship program. And basically I was told that they wouldn't be eligible because they weren't in college, or their parents weren't friends with the executives. And I just thought that was kind of bullshit.
Wow.
And, with my story, my background, and the chip on my shoulder, I was like, absolutely not. Like, you do not need a college degree to work in the music industry.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the moment for me when I went like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to prove the system wrong.
It's amazing because I'm getting to know you through this interview, where it's like I'm seeing how so many different. I'm getting chills thinking about this, because I'm seeing how little facets of your life, like the kid, the punk rock skateboard, start a music label, to calling your friend who works there. Your life is sort of like following what feels right, and when you say it's your swan song, it's sort of like a culmination of all these different facets of your life in this moment, which, I think is really inspiring. I have a lot of thoughts that are, when I was in Nashville as a kid, I worked at a youth homeless shelter here called the Oasis Center that was a part of the national network of Safe Place. So very familiar with Safe Place. I also have a song called A New Way. So everything you're saying, it feels very destined and aligned that we met, because, there are so many people. I don't have family in the music industry. Like, there's so many people growing up where it was like, wow, their parents are in the industry. And I saw how they sort of got handed all this stuff, but then I also saw them get burnt out, because it after a while, when it's not just handed to you, you sort of like, you're like, what are you talking about? And that was never the case. I was always like working hard for it. But I think it's, in a way, a similar kind of swan song, where it's like, I want to take the journey that I'm on, and I want to continue to keep like throwing it back to people and being like, I always say that, like, with my song with Sarah Bareilles, like, She recorded her vocals on GarageBand. I recorded my vocals through this interface that's right here. You know, at the time I was sitting on the edge of my bed in my, you know, one room in Los Angeles. There's like, that's one of the biggest moments I've ever had. And it happened in a way that no one ever teaches you at school. Like no engineer would ever be like, what I did with the song with millions of streams was like a good engineering move. But like, that's not what it's about. It's like, it's really like, can you get yourself in the door? And big part, can you be encouraged by your community and by communities that we're creating to continue? Because that tends to be something that, especially after the pandemic, like the sort of like amount of times I have faced and my friends have faced, the sort of like, maybe you just give up, you know what I mean? But all it takes is one person being like, hey, I've got a friend who works at this place and he's going to be like a mentor to you. And like, here's a little money. And like, maybe this month you continue. That makes me really emotional. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you know, Nashville's been really good to this program specifically, like yourself with What Is Vital reaching out and providing these incredible opportunities for our mentees. And obviously, you know, the people at Soho House in Nashville, but also we have a partnership with Spotify in Nashville because they've got the Spotify studio.
Yeah.
And any of our mentees can access the studio and record there for free with an engineer, JD, kind of whenever they want, whenever there's time. So like, it's pretty cool to be able to, they've got space to go and record podcasts or music or whatever it is they want to do. And then the partnership of What Is Vital to, you know, to be able to get the stuff that they need to create. And then I don't know if you're coming down. I'll send you an invite. I know this is kind of weird podcast talk, but you know, the mentorship program we run the mentorship program for Soho House in North America. So every city there's a Soho House, we run a program. There's 25 mentees, 25 mentors. You know, they're creatives from all different walks of life. Some are entrepreneurial, some are musicians, some are dancers, fashion designers, whatever it is. Every program, the 16-week program, culminates with a showcase where each of our mentees gets 5 minutes to kind of present whatever it is they want. So they're a musician, they can sing. If they're an entrepreneur, they can pitch their business. If they're filmmakers, they can show short film. So, you know, the What Is Vital partnership is going to play a big part in their showcase. So definitely,
I'm very excited for that. You know, I try to be like, there's a balance between, you know, do you have something to show for your art is something that I despise, but it's like, I love the idea of What Is Vital being able to basically just be a part of watching people's art unfold. So when you say showcase, I go, it's an opportunity to share, and I cannot wait. And I hope that, you know, we'll be able to share that like more publicly if that's a thing that happens in Nashville, but I definitely want to be there. Thank you so much for coming on and talking. I'm very excited about this. This is definitely the beginning, but I feel like there's so much more. So yeah, thank you.
No, thank you for having me and letting me share about Creative Futures Collective. And we're very, very excited and stoked for this partnership. So thank you as well.